Hello friends, you're watching Affection Unbound. Real life, real twists. Let's begin the journey. You won't believe what I overheard the night before our big 4th of July lake house weekend in Saugatuck, Michigan. 8 months pregnant, I waddled up the porch steps early to surprise my husband Edward with his favorite cherry pie, only to hear him laughing inside with his whole family, shouting, "Madison just found out she's having my son." Glasses clinked, fireworks popped early in celebration, and his mother gushed. "Once Iris signs those trust papers tomorrow, everything your grandfather built finally comes back to us." I stood frozen on the welcome mat of the house my family had owned for 3 generations. Realizing the man I married had been waiting for the perfect moment to take it all. Keep reading ULL, never guess how completely they begged at my feet 4 months later when my daughter was born. My name is Iris Harper Sterling, 30 years old, and I'm the 3rd generation owner of Harper Marine, the biggest boat dealership and repair chain along the entire Lake Michigan shoreline. My grandfather started it in 1958 with one dock in Holland, Michigan, and turned it into a small empire. After my parents died in a sailing accident when I was 19, I took the helm literally. I expanded to 3 more locations, added a yacht brokerage in Chicago, and made sure every penny of profit went into the Harper Family Trust to fund college scholarships for kids from the lakeshore towns who lost parents to the water just like I did. Everyone said I had the perfect life. Successful business, beautiful historic home in Douglas, and Edward Sterling, the charming finance guy from Grand Rapids who swept me off my feet at 24 and promised he'd never let me carry everything alone. That 4th of July weekend was supposed to be our baby moon before our first child arrived. I'd closed the Saugatuck store early, belly huge under my red, white, and blue sundress. Excited to see Edward's face when I walked in with the pie. The Sterling family had been staying at our lake house all week. My lake house, built by my grandfather in 1964, the one with the wraparound porch and the original stone fireplace. ID insisted they use it because Edward's parents claimed their furnace died and they couldn't afford the repair. I never minded. Family is family, right? I eased the screen door open just a crack, planning to yell surprise, but the voices stopped me cold. Edward's voice carried from the great room, giddy with champagne. "Madison is only 5 months along, but the ultrasound tech swore it's a boy." "A Sterling boy finally," his father boomed, "to the next generation." And glasses clinked so hard I flinched. My mother-in-law Diane giggled, "And tomorrow, when the fireworks start, Iris will be so relaxed from that special lemonade Edward made her. She signed the new trust amendment without even reading it." Edward laughed the same laugh that used to make me feel safe and said, "Exactly. It just moves the voting control to me for the baby's future. She thinks it's sweet." By Monday, the entire Harper Marine board answers to us. My knees almost buckled. The cherry pie slipped from my hands and splattered across the porch like blood. I never went inside. I backed away, got in my Jeep, and drove into the dusk with one hand cradling my belly and the other wiping tears I refused to let fall. Our daughter kicked hard, as if she already knew her daddy had just sold her birthright for a lie. I drove straight through the night, dunes blurring past the windows, until I reached the little motel in South Haven where no one would ever look for me. My daughter kicked like she was already rowing us both to safety. I sat on the lumpy bed, opened my laptop, and texted Edward, "False labor scare at the Saugatuck store. Doctor wants me monitored overnight. Don't worry, I'll be at the lake house by lunch tomorrow. Sent delivered." He replied instantly with heart emojis and "Take care of our little princess." I stared at the word princess and almost threw the phone across the room. By sunrise, I was in Grand Rapids, walking into the wood-paneled office of Margaret Vandermeer, the attorney my grandfather kept on retainer for 40 years. She was 72, sharp as a fillet knife, and the only person alive who still had the original Harper Family Trust in a fireproof vault. I told her everything I'd heard. She didn't gasp or hug me. She simply opened a fresh legal pad and said, "Good girl for not signing a damn thing yet. Let's ruin their holiday." 3 days later, her private investigator, a quiet ex-cop named Torres, sent the first bomb. Madison Edward's perfect girlfriend wasn't some wealthy Chicago influencer like Edward bragged. She was a part-time Pilates instructor from Muskegon who met Edward on Tinder. Every photo of her on yachts or in front-row Lions seats, stock images and heavy Photoshop. Torres even found the $19.99 month app she used. But the real gut punch was the money trail. For 6 years, Edward had been siphoning consulting fees from Harper Marine into a fake LLC called Great Lakes Capital Advisors. Every scholarship check that was supposed to go to a grieving kid went to Madison's rent, Edward's leased Audi. I waited until Labor Day weekend, when every marina from Mackinac to Chicago is packed and reputations sink faster than a drunk captain. I told Edward I was driving up early Friday to open the lake house. Instead, I had Torres install 4 discrete cameras, 2 in the great room, 1 in the kitchen, 1 overlooking the dock. Then I checked into the Marina Grand Resort under my mother's maiden name and waited. Saturday night the Sterlings threw their annual family-only party. I watched the live feed on my phone while eating room service fries. Edward raised a toast. Tomorrow, Iris signs the amendment, and by Monday, the Harper name finally belongs to a Sterling where it should VE been all along. Diane clinked her glass and added, Lord knows her grandfather never thought a little girl could run things forever. My blood turned to ice, but I smiled, because every word was time-stamped and crystal clear. Sunday morning I walked into the lake house like nothing had happened, sundress flowing over my 9-month belly. Edward hugged me too hard, smelling like last night's bourbon. Ready for fireworks and paperwork, babe? He grinned. I smiled back. More than ready. I let them serve me that special lemonade. Torres had already swapped it for the safe pitcher. I signed their fake amendment with a flourish, except it wasn't their document. Margaret had overnighted the real one. A complete revocation of Edward's trustee status, and a new clause that transferred voting control to any child I bore, effective immediately upon birth. I slid it across the picnic table while the first fireworks boomed over the lake. Happy 4th, everyone. Edward's face went white as the rockets' glare. Diane sputtered. His father tried to grab the papers. That's when Margaret walked in with 2 sheriff's deputies summoned for possible attempted fraud on an elderly estate, even though I was very much not elderly. The cameras had already uploaded everything to the cloud. Edward lunged. You can't do this. That's my son Madison is carrying. I just handed him Torres's final report. Page 1. The drugstore paternity test Madison took in Holland last week. Probability of paternity, 0%. The real father, her married Pilates client from Grand Haven. Edward read it once, dropped the pages like they burned, and sank to the dock as if the lake had already swallowed him. The rest of the weekend was a circus. Diane screaming that I'd destroyed her family. Edward's father threatening to sue until Margaret reminded him quiet like that embezzlement carries up to 20 years in Michigan. By Monday morning they were packing their SUV with whatever fit. Diane sobbing into cardboard boxes while neighbors filmed from their boats. 4 months later, on a crisp November afternoon, I gave birth to Charlotte Harper in the same hospital where my mother had me. No Sterlings in the waiting room. Just Margaret holding my hand and Torres guarding the door, like a very expensive uncle. When they placed Charlotte on my chest, she let out one indignant yell that sounded exactly like a boat horn claiming its slip. I laughed through tears and whispered, "Welcome home, Captain." The Sterlings tried once more Christmas Day. They showed up at my door with forced smiles and a stroller they clearly bought off Facebook Marketplace. Edward got on his knees in the snow. We were wrong. Please, let us be part of her life. I looked down at him, then at Charlotte asleep against my shoulder, and closed the door without a word. Some things sink. Harper Marine sails on bigger than ever, scholarships fully funded, and a new sign out front that reads Harper Women at the Helm since 1958. And every 4th of July, Charlotte and I light our own fireworks on the same dock where her father's dreams went dark. She doesn't ask about the Sterlings anymore. She just points at the sky and says, "Mama, we make the prettiest booms."